The affective turn is an interdisciplinary movement in the humanities and social sciences that emphasizes the importance of affect, emotions, feelings, and embodied experience in understanding culture, politics, and society. Emerging in the late 20th and early 21st centuries, it moves away from traditional focus on reason and rationality, considering how emotional and bodily experiences shape human behavior, social relations, and identity. Affective turn in literary theory. In literary theory, the affective turn shifts attention from textual analysis solely based on language and structure, e.g., structuralism, deconstruction, to how literature evokes emotions and the role emotions play in interpreting texts. Here are some of its key aspects in literary studies. 1. Focus on emotion and sensation. The affective turn in literary studies emphasizes the emotional responses of readers and how texts are designed to provoke affective experiences. Scholars examine how narratives engage the senses, evoke empathy, and create emotional resonance, beyond just intellectual interpretation. 2. Reader response and affective engagement. Reader response criticism overlaps with the affective turn, as it examines how individual readers emotionally and affectively engage with texts. It questions how literature affects readers' emotions, how personal experiences color interpretations, and how emotions shape reading practices. 3. The body and materiality. Affective literary theory is concerned with the body and material experience. It explores how literature represents physical sensations, bodily reactions, and the embodied experiences of characters. This lens is often applied to texts that focus on trauma, illness, or physical suffering, examining how bodily experiences of characters affect readers' understanding. 4. Politics and ethics of affect. Affective theory also looks at how emotions play a role in shaping political and ethical responses to literature. For example, how narratives of suffering or injustice elicit compassion or indignation, prompting readers to reflect on societal issues. The emotional responses invoked by literature are seen as politically significant and capable of inspiring social change. 5. Beyond representation. The affective turn encourages moving beyond analyzing how emotions are represented in texts, focusing instead on how texts produce effective responses in real-time interactions between readers, texts, and contexts. It emphasizes the dynamic interaction between literature and readers' emotional states. Key thinkers and influences. Brian Massumi, known for exploring the relationship between affect and politics, particularly in how non-conscious, precognitive emotions influence decision-making and behavior. Eve Kosofsky-Sedgwick focuses on affect in relation to sexuality, identity, and queer theory, emphasizing how affective states like shame shape personal and social experiences. Sarah Ahmed explores how emotions create collective bodies and impact social and political movements, particularly in feminist and postcolonial contexts. Lauren Berlant examines the intersection of affect with public life, national sentiment, and the emotional investments people have in political structures. Application in literary studies. The affective turn can be applied to analyze various literary genres. Trauma literature, analyzing how literature evokes readers' empathy, sympathy, and emotional responses to characters' suffering. Postcolonial and feminist literature, focusing on how literature conveys the emotional experiences of marginalized groups, such as pain, anger, and resilience. Queer literature, investigating how literature represents affective states like shame, desire, and pride in relation to identity politics. In sum, the affective turn expands literary criticism to include emotional, bodily, and affective experiences, providing a richer understanding of how literature connects to both personal and collective human experiences. You said. History Origin Evolution Concept Definition Example Features Pioneering Figures Texts Contribution Impact ChatGPT said. ChatGPT History and Origin of the Affective Turn. The affective turn emerged in the late 1990s and early 2000s as a response to the dominance of post-structuralism, deconstruction, and linguistic theories that focused on language, discourse, and representation. Scholars felt that these approaches often overlook the role of emotion, sensation, and embodied experience in understanding human life, culture, and society. The affective turn draws on a wide range of theoretical traditions, including phenomenology, e.g., Edmund Husserl, Maurice Merleau-Ponty focuses on lived experience and the perception of the body in space. Psychoanalysis, e.g., Sigmund Freud, Jacques Lacan examines the unconscious and emotions like desire, fear, and anxiety. Feminist and queer theory looks at how affect shapes personal and political identities, especially in relation to gender and sexuality, e.g., Eve Kosofsky-Sedgwick, Judith Butler. Deleuzian philosophy, e.g., Gilles Deleuze, Félix Guattari. Affects are seen as pre-personal intensities that circulate and influence bodies, emotions, and social relationships. Evolution of the affective turn. Initially, the affective turn was a reaction against linguistic models in literary theory and social sciences, which were perceived as neglecting the importance of bodily sensation and emotions. Over time, it became a broader interdisciplinary field, drawing from various areas such as cognitive science, political theory, anthropology, and art. In literary studies, the affective turn helped open new avenues for exploring how literature engages the body and emotions, shifting the focus from purely textual and formalist analyses to the affective experience of both readers and characters in texts. Concept and definition. At its core, the affective turn emphasizes that affect, understood as emotion, mood, and sensation, plays a crucial role in shaping human subjectivity, social interactions, and political life. Affect is different from emotion in that it refers to preconscious, non-verbal experiences that shape how people feel and respond to their environments. Affect is often described as the intensity that passes between bodies, shaping how people connect or disconnect emotionally and socially. It highlights the in-betweenness of emotions, how they are not fixed in individuals but circulate and shape relations between individuals and objects. Features of the affective turn. Embodied experience. Focus on how literature and art engage with bodily sensations and emotions rather than purely intellectual or cognitive responses. Non-representational focus. Affects are understood as preconscious, non-representational forces, distinct from how emotions are traditionally represented in language or narrative. Political and social engagement. Affects are not just personal or individual experiences but play a significant role in shaping political ideologies, movements, and social interactions, e.g., collective emotions like nationalism or fear of the other. Interdisciplinarity. Draws from multiple fields, philosophy, neuroscience, political theory, anthropology, and literature, demonstrating the universality of affect across human experience. Interaction between bodies. Emphasizes that emotions are shared and transferred between people, spaces, and objects, creating complex networks of affective interactions. Pioneering figures and their texts. Brian Massumi Parables for the Virtual, 2002. One of the most prominent figures in the affective turn, Massumi argues that affect is a pre-conscious intensity that flows between bodies and environments, shaping experience before it is captured by cognition or language. Eve Kosofsky-Sedgwick Touching Feeling. Affect, Pedagogy, Performativity 2003. Sedgwick brings affect into the realm of queer theory and literary studies, examining how emotions like shame and love play critical roles in shaping identity and social norms. Sarah Ahmed The Cultural Politics of Emotion 2004. Ahmed explores how emotions, like fear and happiness, circulate between people, objects, and ideas, and how they structure social relations, especially in feminist and postcolonial contexts. Lauren Berlant Cruel Optimism 2011. Berlant focuses on the emotional investments people make in political structures and ideologies, especially the way emotions like hope and optimism can bind people to structures that ultimately harm them. Teresa Brennan The Transmission of Affect 2004. Brennan explores how emotions and feelings are transmitted between individuals, focusing on the collective and social nature of affect. Key concepts and contributions. Affect versus emotion. Affect is distinct from emotion, which is often seen as a conscious, subjective experience. Affect is preconscious and circulates between bodies and environments. Affect and politics. Affect theory contributes to understanding how emotions are manipulated in political discourse and collective social movements, whether through media, political rhetoric, or public gatherings. Affect and literature. In literary studies, the focus is on how literature not only represents emotions but also produces affect in readers. This allows for new ways of reading texts, such as considering how narratives engage readers emotionally and how characters' affective states are represented. Intersectionality of affect. Affective theory connects with feminist, queer, and postcolonial critiques, offering tools for analyzing how marginalized groups experience and resist dominant emotional norms imposed by societal structures. Examples of literary applications. Toni Morrison's Beloved. examining how trauma and memory affect the characters' relationships and how readers are emotionally affected by their suffering. Virginia Woolf's Mrs. Dalloway focuses on how Woolf uses stream of consciousness techniques to represent characters' affective experiences and emotional flows throughout a single day. Kazuo Ishiguro's Never Let Me Go studies the subdued emotional intensity between the characters in a dystopian world, reflecting the subtle ways affect informs social and personal relations. Impact of the affective turn. New literary interpretation. By focusing on how literature elicits emotion and sensation, scholars can explore new dimensions of texts, moving beyond language and representation. Broader social science engagement. Affect theory has broadened the scope of cultural studies, anthropology, and political theory by providing new ways to understand how emotions shape human society. Political and ethical implications. Affect theory's focus on emotions has been particularly useful in understanding the emotional investments people make in political ideologies and social movements, emphasizing the emotional and affective dimensions of protest, identity politics, and collective action. Conclusion. The affective turn has profoundly changed the way we understand literature, culture, and politics by bringing attention to the emotional and bodily dimensions of human experience. It has contributed to a more nuanced and embodied understanding of texts and social relations, offering new ways to explore how affect flows through literature, society, and politics. You said. Strength and weakness, uniqueness with example. ChatGPT said. ChatGPT. Strengths, weaknesses, and uniqueness of the affective turn. Strengths. Re-engagement with the body and emotion. One of the major strengths of the affective turn is its focus on bodily experience and emotions, bringing attention to elements that were previously marginalized by more rational, language-centered theories such as structuralism and post-structuralism. It emphasizes that humans are not just cognitive beings but also emotional and embodied ones. This shift allows for a more comprehensive understanding of human interactions, emotions, and experiences. Example. In literature, examining Toni Morrison's Beloved through the lens of affect can provide a deeper understanding of how trauma and memory shape the emotional lives of the characters, and how this trauma is felt by the reader on an emotional level. Interdisciplinary nature. The affective turn draws from multiple disciplines, such as psychology, neuroscience, philosophy, sociology, and literary theory, allowing it to bridge gaps between different fields of knowledge. This makes it flexible and applicable to a wide range of areas, from literature to media studies to political theory. Example. Brian Masumi's affect theory shows how non-conscious, precognitive bodily responses shape political reactions and social behavior. This application of affect can be seen in media studies, where political campaigns use emotional stimuli to influence voter behavior. Focus on preconscious and non-representational aspects. Affect theory explores non-verbal and preconscious experiences, emotional reactions that occur before language can process them. This focus on the non-representational challenges conventional modes of analysis that focus solely on discourse or language. Example. In Virginia Woolf's Mrs. Dalloway, affect theory helps analyze the stream of consciousness narrative style as an attempt to capture preconscious emotions and sensations, offering readers an intimate connection to the characters' inner affective states. Political relevance. Affect theory brings attention to the emotional dimensions of politics and social life, especially in areas like nationalism, racism, feminism, and queer studies. It shows how emotions like fear, hatred, and hope shape political ideologies and movements. This political engagement makes the affective turn valuable in contemporary discussions of social justice, identity politics, and activism. Example. Sarah Ahmed's work on the affective economies of racism shows how emotions like fear and anxiety are circulated through social discourses, contributing to the perpetuation of racial discrimination and xenophobia. Weaknesses. Lack of clear definition and consistency. One of the criticisms of affect theory is its lack of a clear, consistent definition of key concepts like affect. Scholars use affect in varied and sometimes conflicting ways, which can lead to confusion and an overuse of the term to explain many different phenomena. Example. The distinction between affect and emotion is sometimes blurred, as different theorists such as Masumi, Sedgwick, and Ahmed define and use these terms in overlapping ways. Limited engagement with structural and systemic issues. While affect theory focuses on emotions and the body, critics argue that it sometimes downplays structural issues like economics, class, and institutional power. By focusing heavily on personal or emotional experiences, affect theory may overlook the material conditions and structures that shape those experiences. Example: Marxist critiques of the affective turn suggest that while emotions are important, a sole focus on affective experience can obscure larger issues like capitalism, systemic inequality, or state oppression. In analyzing political movements, for instance, focusing only on the emotional drivers might neglect the material reasons for unrest. Overemphasis on subjectivity. Critics also argue that affect theory places too much emphasis on individual subjectivity, at the expense of broader social and collective forces. This subject-centered focus might reduce complex social phenomena to personal emotional responses, rather than examining them as part of larger, interconnected systems. Example: while affect theory can help explain how individuals emotionally respond to a political speech, it might not adequately address how media corporations or government policies manipulate emotions on a large scale. Difficult to measure and operationalize. Affect is often described as precognitive and nonverbal, making it difficult to measure or quantify. This can be a challenge for researchers who need to provide concrete evidence of how affect operates or circulates in particular contexts. Example: in literary studies, while affect theory can describe how a reader feels while reading a novel, it is hard to scientifically or objectively measure these affective responses across different readers or quantify how literature produces affect. Uniqueness. Focus on non-linguistic experience. The affective turn's uniqueness lies in its attention to preconscious, non-linguistic, and non-representational dimensions of human experience. This contrasts with earlier theories that focused on language, representation, or discourse as the primary means of understanding the world. Affect theory highlights that not all human experience can be fully captured or represented by language, making it distinct from many earlier philosophical or theoretical movements. Example: Deleuze and Guattari's concept of affect emphasizes that affect is an intensity or force that passes between bodies and environments, not reducible to words. This offers a new way to analyze cultural phenomena, such as how media images affect viewers on an emotional, non-cognitive level. Emphasis on the relational and dynamic nature of affect. Affect theory stresses that emotions are relational and dynamic, constantly circulating between people, spaces, and objects. This offers a unique way to think about how people are interconnected through shared emotional experiences and how affects move through different contexts and communities. Example: in Lauren Berlant's Cruel Optimism, she explores how people form emotional attachments to political structures or societal ideals that are ultimately harmful or unachievable. The uniqueness lies in how these emotional attachments are relational, deeply embedded in social and political contexts. Example of strengths and weaknesses. Strength. In analyzing Kazuo Ishiguro's Never Let Me Go, affect theory allows readers to explore the subtle, often subdued emotional landscape of the characters. Their feelings of resignation, love, and sadness exist on a level that's often preconscious and deeply affective, beyond traditional emotions. This gives readers a more nuanced understanding of the emotional depth and complexity of Ishiguro's dystopian world. Weakness. However, the focus on affect can sometimes downplay the novel's engagement with ethical questions and structural oppression. Ishiguro's work also critically examines the larger social system that exploits the characters, but an affect-focused analysis might miss these broader political themes, focusing too heavily on individual emotions. Conclusion. The affective turn offers a fresh perspective on human experience, emphasizing the power of emotions, sensations, and preconscious affect. Its strengths include its engagement with bodily experience, interdisciplinary nature, and attention to political and emotional dimensions. However, it has weaknesses in terms of its sometimes vague definitions, potential to overlook structural issues, and difficulty in empirical measurement. Its uniqueness lies in its focus on non-linguistic, relational, and dynamic emotional experiences, setting it apart from other theoretical approaches. You said. Apply it and things fall apart in Pride and Prejudice with example. ChatGPT said. ChatGPT. Applying the affective turn in Things Fall Apart in Pride and Prejudice. The affective turn, which emphasizes the importance of precognitive, bodily, and emotional experiences in literature and culture, can reveal new layers of meaning in classic novels like Chinua Achebe's Things Fall Apart and Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice. By focusing on affect, we can analyze the non-verbal emotional dynamics between characters, the social environment, and the reader's response. 1. Affective turn in Things Fall Apart by Chinua Achebe. Things Fall Apart explores the impact of colonialism on Igbo society, focusing on Okonkwo, a tragic hero whose life is shaped by cultural, social, and personal tensions. While traditional readings focus on themes of colonialism, masculinity, and culture, applying affect theory opens up new ways of understanding how emotions, bodily sensations, and nonverbal dynamics influence characters and drive the narrative. Examples of affective analysis. Okonkwo's emotional rigidity and fear of weakness. Okonkwo's deep-seated fear of weakness manifests as intense bodily reactions and emotional outbursts. His affective experiences are deeply tied to his traumatic childhood memories of his father, Unoka, who was perceived as weak and effeminate. Okonkwo's affect, his pre-conscious and instinctive responses, drives his actions. This fear affects not only his behavior but also his relationships with his family and community. Affective turn analysis. Rather than just analyzing Okonkwo's actions as a response to societal norms, affect theory allows us to focus on the bodily and emotional intensity Okonkwo experiences, such as his rage, shame, and fear. His body remembers these affective experiences and they shape his emotional rigidity. His fear of effeminacy isn't just cognitive, it's an affective reaction ingrained in his physical being, motivating him to reject any sign of weakness. Example scene. Okonkwo's violent outburst when he beats his wife during the Week of Peace is not just a result of traditional masculine aggression but can be read as a deeply affective response, a sudden, pre-conscious manifestation of his internalized fear of failure and weakness. Affect theory helps us explore how emotions of anger and fear circulate within his body, erupting in violence that is beyond mere rational control. The affective atmosphere of the community. Achebe's novel is rich in its depiction of Igbo culture and community rituals, many of which involve affective experiences like fear, reverence, and joy. These collective emotional experiences play an important role in maintaining social cohesion. The affective atmosphere of the village is deeply connected to communal rituals and beliefs. Affective turn analysis. Affect theory allows us to examine how these rituals, such as the wrestling matches or the arrival of the locusts, produce shared emotional experiences that shape individual and collective identity. These events create an affective charge within the community, linking individuals together through nonverbal, shared emotional responses. Example scene. The funeral of Izudu creates an affective intensity in the community, where emotions of fear, loss, and reverence flow through the crowd. Okonkwo accidentally kills a boy during the event, and this affective moment of high tension leads to his exile. The intense emotional and bodily energy of the community at the funeral contributes to the moment of tragedy. 2. Affective turn in Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. Pride and Prejudice is often read as a novel about social class, marriage, and character development. However, through the lens of affect theory, we can explore the unspoken emotions, bodily responses, and affective tensions between characters that drive the plot forward, revealing the subtle emotional undercurrents that shape relationships and social dynamics. Examples of affective analysis. Elizabeth Bennet and Mr. Darcy's affective interactions. The emotional and physical tension between Elizabeth and Darcy is central to the novel's plot. Their interactions are often marked by affective experiences, subtle, nonverbal reactions like blushing, gazing, and bodily discomfort that signify they're developing emotions for each other, even before they consciously recognize their love. Affective turn analysis. Affect theory allows us to focus on how their bodily and emotional responses shape their interactions. Elizabeth's affective reaction to Darcy's initial proposal is one of shock and anger, conveyed through her flushed face, rapid breathing, and agitation. These affective responses reveal her deeper feelings of social injustice, wounded pride, and moral indignation, beyond the words she speaks. Example scene. In Darcy's first marriage proposal, Elizabeth's affective response is one of heightened physical agitation, while Darcy's calm, composed demeanor contrasts sharply with the intense emotional charge in the room. The affective atmosphere between them reveals the deep, unspoken emotional conflict that words alone cannot fully capture. Affective atmosphere of social events. Social gatherings such as balls and dinners in Pride and Prejudice are rich with affective interactions, where emotions like embarrassment, pride, desire, and disdain flow beneath the surface of polite conversation. The emotional undercurrents in these gatherings often reveal more about the characters than their words. Affective turn analysis. Through affect theory, these events can be seen as spaces of affective circulation, where the bodies and emotions of the characters interact in complex ways. At the Netherfield ball, for instance, the affective tension between Elizabeth and Darcy is palpable, as is the embarrassment of Mr. Collins or the joy of Jane Bennet. These affective dynamics shape the characters' behaviors and choices in ways that are not fully conscious. Example scene. During the Netherfield ball, Darcy and Elizabeth's affective responses to one another are charged with tension. Elizabeth feels embarrassed and self-conscious in Darcy's presence, while Darcy struggles with his own feelings of attraction and class consciousness. Their dance is not just a formal exchange but an affective encounter, where their emotions and bodily reactions speak more than their dialogue. Mrs. Bennet's affective overload. Mrs. Bennet's exaggerated emotional responses provide comic relief in the novel, but through the lens of affect theory, we can see how her affective excess, her constant anxiety, excitement, and panic, is not just a personality trait but reflects the social pressures of securing marriages for her daughters. Affective turn analysis. Mrs. Bennet's affective state can be read as a manifestation of the societal affective environment. Women of her class were often expected to be anxious about their daughters' futures. Her emotional outbursts are not just irrational, they are effective responses to the intense social pressure surrounding marriage and status. Example scene. When Mr. Bingley shows interest in Jane, Mrs. Bennet's exaggerated joy and bodily excitement can be read as an effective response to the relief of social pressure. Her emotions mirror the affective economy of 19th-century England, where securing a good marriage was a deeply emotional and practical concern for women. Conclusion. By applying the affective turn to Things Fall Apart in Pride and Prejudice, we can explore the pre-verbal, bodily, and emotional dimensions of the characters' experiences. In Achebe's novel, affect theory illuminates Okonkwo's deep-seated fears and the collective emotions of the Igbo community. In Austen's novel, it reveals the subtle emotional undercurrents in social interactions and romantic relationships. This approach provides a richer, more embodied understanding of how affective experiences shape both personal lives and social realities in these classic texts. ChatGPT can make mistakes. Check important info.